the record button. We are now being recorded. Say hi to YouTube. This will be going up on YouTube. But, alright. Y'all already know what I'm going to cover. You guys already probably are aware of the shitstorm that is VRC right now. Am I wrong? Because you guys don't know what's going on with VRC. I guess you guys live under a rock? Maybe? Possibly? Something like that? But yeah, for those of you who are listening and probably don't know what's going on, because I'm pretty sure my chat does, VRChat is going to do a security update. Now you're probably like, nah, that's not that bad. You know, security updates are always good for games, right? Yes and no. What they're implementing is what's called a easy anti-cheat. And what that's doing is basically going to lock the game down to a point that you cannot do any kind of modification or mods to without getting immediate ban. Well, Grim, that doesn't sound that bad. You know, it keeps malicious modders at bay. You know, it's a good thing. Again, you're wrong. There's a lot of good quality of life mods that are in the crossfire here. Well, just bring those, you know, mods to the dev team, and people are getting banned for it. Excuse me, what? Yeah. People are actively getting banned on their Discord for trying to justify good mods that need to be implemented right now. And it's ridiculous. Again, I can see both sides of this whole shitstorm. Is, you know, yes, they needed a security update because there are a rampant amount of malicious mods running around. There is a rampant amount of just bad shit on the platform, which I'm pretty sure chat can agree. You know, if you've ever been crashed or, you know, random just like global effects happening, there's a lot of bad shit. But because the mod team and the people at VRChat that don't take security seriously, it is up to us as a community to make mods to counter the malicious ones. And there are a dozen or so good, positive mods that are, you know, built in a way that balance and negate malicious mods. You know, but because of this update moving forward, all of those mods that are going to be, you know, good to stop malicious mods are now grounds for you to get banned. So it's definitely a head scratcher moment of just, seriously? Like, seriously, is it seriously? Because it's like, if you look at history, and I know I'm going to go off on a tangent for a minute. If you look at history, you know, what happened back in, like, you know, when Prohibition was a thing and, you know, there's no alcohol. What happened? You know, those of you guys that know your history will know. There was bootleggers. There was people that would, you know, do it illegally to get what they want. And that can be implied for basically anything of this nature. Malicious stuff will always find a way around every anti-cheat. Look at Warzone, for crying out loud. They have an anti-cheat, and there's still dozens and dozens of hackers a day that are still ruining the game. There is still malicious activity. So, you know, and it just breaks my heart to sit here and go, this is such a, and the problem is, I can see it from the perspective of the you know, mod team, of the people at VRC, is they know they have a corner on the market. They're not stupid. They know Chill Out, Neos, every other VR like social game doesn't have the community, the drive, everything that they have. So that is the only thing I can think of is why they would want to push this kind of update, because they know people are going to come back. Yeah, people are going to throw a hitsy fit. They're going to get aggravated. But the biggest thing I've learned about the VRChat community as a whole, there's nothing better than VRChat at the moment. And that's, again, people are going to probably give me a bunch of hate in the comments, hit me, you know, with a bunch of stuff. Neos is better, or Chill Out's better. Yes, in their own perspective ways, yes, they are better. They are better optimized. They have better things. But just the overall community and accessibility of VRChat is what gives it its edge. Updates like this, yeah, they're going to dent it for a little bit. But I give it a couple weeks and people are still gonna come back to it. You know, we're going to make do. We're going to go back because there's no other thriving community like VRChat's community. So, you're probably like, well, Grim, you know, you usually don't throw your hat in the ring unless there's something big going on. Which you'd be right. You know, I usually don't put an icy chat out on everything that ever happens. The issue that I have right now is I am sick and tired of seeing posts on it saying that everyone is voicing their opinion, they're crybabies, they're dumb, everything under the sun. I had 2 TikToks show up today about people going, oh, people are being immature about it. No. And then I literally just logged into Twitter, and a Twitter post from a friend of mine is basically outlining that everything is, you know, oh, since they're taking away your pretty mods, you know, why are you throwing a stink about it? And that's where I want to correct everybody. They're not pretty mods. They're accessibility mods. There's, you know, stuff that allows people with colorblind disabilities like myself, that allow it to tweak it so it doesn't hurt my eyes. There is so many just quality of life mods that are good for people with disabilities. It's not just about your camera mod. It's not just about your, you know, grabbable mirror or whatever. You know, those are nice, but the overall just modding community and just the level of mods that you can install to allow your VRChat experience to be as catered and as simplistic to you is amazing. And, you know, it baffles me to sit here and have people sit down and go, oh, you know, people are just being brats and people are just being ignorant and, you know, they just, you know, they're throwing a stink because something cool is being taken away. It's, you know, yeah, that's part of it and it hurts, but there's so many disabled people. There's people I know in my friend circle who are not going to be able to play anymore. You know, I have friends who are disabled that, you know, if they lay down and such, they want to be able to reset their play space so it doesn't disorient them. There's a mod for that. You know, it recognizes and resets your play space to a comfortable place. You know, there is so many mods out there that are just little itty bitty, just kind of, you know, leg up on the world and, you know, help out with certain things that, you know, are super helpful for disabled people to play VR. So that's why I just get super irritated when I hear people sitting there and going, that people are being ignorant, they're just a bunch of crybabies, they're, you know, this and that, and it's like, no, it's actually not about the pretty mods, it's not about any of that. You know, my opinion right now is I already kind of explored Chill Out, and it's a good alternative to VRC in the meantime. And I think it is a good ground for content creation. It already has things like the camera mod that we have in VRC, the drone stuff that's already built into the game. So that, to me, is a, you know, good place to go to make content. You know, but the problem is that the VRC is where most of my friends are. And I know a lot of people are boycotting and everything else, but I know for a fact most of them are going to come back. Because, again, there's nothing like VRChat. There's nothing that has that level of just community. I could be wrong. But we've seen this before when people were freaking out about the changing of bones and everyone was getting aggravated because their avatars were broken. You know, we've seen similar things like this. Not to this level, of course, but definitely something that, you know, shook up the community a little bit. Do I think the devs are going about this the correct way? No. God, no. You know, they should be on their Discord actively being like, yeah, we'll take into consideration what's going on. Or, if anything, reassuring those who are voicing their opinion about disabled mods and, you know, people with disability. You know, they should be taking that in. You know, they should be answering those. we'll take that into consideration. We'll take that into consideration. But they're not. They're immediately just shutting everyone out and just doing this I will do what I want kind of act. And that's, I feel, what has the community up in most uproar, is just no one is basically being heard. But again, it defaults back to what I said earlier, is VRC is not dumb. It knows it has the corner of the market. It knows, the player base will come back. So they are strong because they know that everyone will return one day. But like I said, the thing that breaks my heart the most is just how divided even the community is, of the people who say that it's justified and people who say and call the other ones out and say that everyone's overreacting. Because on both sides it's childish when it comes to people going to social media and fighting with one another. Because as a community, we need to come together and go, no, this is not okay. You need to rethink this. This is going to do a lot more damage than you think than I do believe that you're ready for. And that's the way that that's what I think that needs to be done. Is just, as a community, we need to come together and put aside the fact of, even if you don't use mods, we need to come together and go, these are things that need to be done. Exactly. All I can do is hope that that people come to their senses over at VRC and understand that, by doing this, the initiative is good. The fallout is not good. Again, like I said earlier, VRC has needed a security update for a while. That much is true. I can say that much with certainty, that it's needed a touch-up to its security. But all that we've learned about security updates for games, they're time-buying. That's all they are. Because again, every malicious person, hacker, modder, whatever, that wants to inflict harm will find a loophole. It always happens in every game. It will always find a way. All that doing with security updates is you're just buying time. Because the thing is, everything against malicious mods, hackers, whatever, is always going to be arms race no matter what platform you're on. It will always be an arms race because that's just how society is. We have shitheads like that get off and love doing that. So. And the thing is, they would quell this storm easily if they literally just made a statement, we're taking in your consideration, and actually starting to implement some of the things that are being vocalized. That's it. That's literally all they have to do. They have to have some community manager or something to speak up and go, we are taking in your consideration, then actually do it. Then actually follow through, grab a bunch of people from the community that are trusted, and people, or modders that are very trusted and recommended. Sit down with them and start implementing these mods into the game over time. It's so simple. Literally just move forward, whitelist the good mods, blacklist the bad mods. I had a huge discussion with my lovely girlfriend, Slushy. She vocalized the same things, and she literally says, sit down, make an algorithm that literally will recognize behaviors. Because the biggest thing with malicious modders and mods and things that crash, what happens? They join into a world and they crash the world. Run a script that tells a timetable. If people join in, crash the world, who's going to be there still? The crasher. Grab that ID, ban that ID. Now again, I'm no coder, I'm no scripter. I don't know how simple that could be in terms of doability, but that's the simplest way to go about it. At least in my experience, when I've ever been crashed, there are people that jump in, and they're only there for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes max, and then the world's gone. Sometimes even shorter than that. You know, run the IDs on the world and go, all right, how long has this user been here? How long? You know, like, again, I can see the issue because people are like, I don't want to, you know, there's going to be a person that's going to have to be in charge of, you know, having to read the backlog or having to decide, you know, is this person the one that caused it, blah, blah, blah. But the biggest thing is timetables don't lie. If someone who's going to crash the world, are you going to be in the world for 5, 6 hours, 7 hours? No, you're not. You know, so that leaves a level of exclusion to people who are just there to enjoy the world. You know, the biggest thing is, like I said, people who come into Crash Worlds come in for like 2 minutes, you know, and then crash the world. So you run the ideas of people who have joined the world recently within a 2-minute span. Well, yeah, that could lead to people like unfairly getting banned because maybe they join in, then they crash because their system can't handle it or something, and then they're ending up on that list. Yes and no. That's where you would have a secondary system that goes in and goes, why did they crash? Or why were they not there long? And if it's something on like hardware issue or something, it would throw an error. Which again would scoop them out of that pool and back into the exclusive pool of people who didn't cause an issue. Now, I was not saying this version or this way of doing it is the end all be all way of doing it. I think for now, like I said, is, you know, they just need to reassure the community that they're looking into getting some of these quality of life mods into the game. That's literally it. You know, that's the biggest thing, is they need to just reassure the community. You know, banning people and silencing people is not a way to stop the outrage. People will go to other mediums to talk about their rage. You know, there's people already all over Twitter, all over Discord, all over TikTok. You know, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few other, you know, YouTubers that are going to be covering this because it's blatantly the wrong way to go about it. You know, like, yeah, I can see this not going well. I can see this not wanting to agree with a lot of people. So, I don't know. It's just, I expected better from someone who brought so much community-driven stuff. And I say community-driven as in they have always been kind of known to listen to their community to some extent. Like, they're acting like they're dumb. They're acting like, you know, all mods are malicious and everything. And I know for a fact, if you've worked at VRC, you've seen a fair amount of people who have, you know, used mods that are good. You know, if you've ever digested, you know, any level of TikTok from a VR-oriented creator, you've seen somebody that runs mods. Plain and simple. You know, so it's just, I don't know, just poorly handled, poorly timed, because as you guys know, I'm gonna get set here soon to start filming my little show movie thing. I don't even know what to call it. Story thing? I don't know. You know, it's poorly timed because I was gonna rely a lot on the mods to try to help out with that. Now, we have used a excuse me, sorry, just woke up. We have, you know, another platform picked out in the meantime. So, and whatnot, but it still sucks because like we're gonna have to port avatars over. We're gonna have to hopefully try to find a world that will work now. It's gonna be a lot of just scrambling in a sense. So, but yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is it's timing is just gonna suck. That's all. I've seen one of them use a mod that guarded the world at time for malicious users that would join only due to with that being Oculus users. Yeah, there is. I've seen mods that will, say one of the malicious mods comes in and just they want to make the world or the floor disappear in the world and make you just free fall forever. It negates that. You're just standing where you were while the floor is gone because it negates that script. There's other ones that say if they don't negate the floor falling and you're free falling, you can still pull up your menu and access it to like respawn or to go home to get out of that situation. Because as you guys know, if you're free falling, your menu doesn't work. And that's why that's a semi-popular way to be malicious is to just take the floor away because there is no ways to negate that right now besides using mods to counter them. Because as a normal user with no mods, you have no way to fight them. Plain and simple. There's just so much about this that's just mishandled. So, and that's the cut and dry of it. It's disheartening to see such a good company and something that's been beneficial for many. There's a lot of people who have used VRChat and the social level it brings as an escape. The pandemic was brutal for many, myself including. I had just gotten out of surgery. I had just kind of gotten my life back together to where I could go out. And then, bam, you can't go out anymore because there's a COVID. There's COVID and there's, this thing, especially to trans folks, that are it's extremely deadly to us. I would be lying to you if I said I haven't been in my house for over 2 years. But that's a fact. I have been in these same 8 walls for over 2.5 years now. That is how long it's been since my surgery. It's only been recent to where I could go out in the world and feel safe-ish. So, but yeah, this whole thing is a clusterfuck, and there's right ways to go about fighting this, and then there's the immature, childish ways that I see are being done. But at the end of the day, the stance that I take is whatever works. If it's the organized ones or the ones that are going out and being belligerent and just doxing people and getting mad at the company. If it matters enough to the VRC devs to where they will try to come up with something, then sure. The thing I don't want to see is the community fighting each other. Nobody is a crybaby in this scenario. Everyone in this community as a whole is affected by this. Whether you don't use a mod or do use a mod, or because I'm pretty sure even if you don't use mods, you have friends and people in your circle that use mods. So, calling everyone, "Oh, you're childish and stupid," and XYZ is not the way to go. That's just plain and simple. That's just not how that's supposed to go. So, but it's still disheartening to see. Like, I already can feel that myself am going to be torn between, other platforms now, and my circle of friends is effectively going to be split in half. There are some nights I'm going to be on Chill Out. There's some nights I'm going to have to be on Neos. I personally do not like Neos. It's a good thing for maybe 3-point tracking and just kind of hanging out with friends that way. But it's such a finicky, full body setup that I just hate with a passion. So, but anyways, that's been just my take on just kind of the state of everything, and I hate that, and yeah, I hate that this is happening, and I hope things get resolved in a more community-oriented manner, and kind of just people who were unjustly banned by the dev team get unbanned, and apologies are issued, because on both sides of the board right now, there's just a lot of childish level of stuff happening. So, but it is what it is, and we can't stop whatever happens. At the end of the day, us as a community just kind of need to understand what's happening and do the most responsible and respectful way of going about it. Because corporations will be corporations at the end of the day. There's no way about that. They're going to do what they want because that's what they can do. So, that being said, that's been my coverage on the whole VRC dilemma and drama and shit. So, hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.